Hello learners, welcome to this program. We shall discuss today the steps for designing instructions. I am Shutapa Bose. I teach at the School of Education, Indira Gandhi National Open University. Today in this program, we shall discuss how to design instructions. What are the steps that we should take while designing instructions? But before that, I would like to tell very briefly what an instructional design is. Well, an instructional design is a plan for teaching. Teaching becomes instructions when it is planned and when it is goal directed. Therefore, teaching may be informal, in an informal situation, and the teacher could come unprepared, unplanned. For example, when we learn household chores from our family members or we learn how to use technology from our friends, of course, neither our family members nor our friends come prepared to teach us. They don't come with a plan to teach us. But unlike such situations, when we are in the classroom and we intend to teach our learners, or maybe when we are in an online class and we have to teach our learners, we do not take the risk of teaching without planning beforehand. We plan what we need to teach, and what we need to teach is again determined in view of the instructional objectives. That is, what should be taught is decided in the light of the objectives that we have framed, and the objectives would tell us why we are going to teach a particular concept or idea or process. In view of such instructional objectives, the objectives of teaching, we decide what should be taught, what type of content we need so that the learners can attain the learning that we desire, so that the instructional objectives are fulfilled. Therefore, this is the answer to the question of what is to be taught, and this of course begins with why to teach, and after that how to teach. This is also an important aspect of instructional designing. How to teach, this question is answered when we deliberate on the kind of content that we should teach and in which way, how to explain it, what sort of pedagogy should we use, whether we should involve a lecture, whether we should deliver a lecture, or we would engage our learners in some kind of activities like a discussion, a brainstorming, or maybe we would assign a project, or there could be some assignments. This is how we decide how to teach. Apart from the pedagogy, how we would be delivering the content, whether it's going to be a face-to-face session, or we are going to use some medium or maybe a media for delivering the content, whether it's going to be delivered through print medium or the audio or the video, multimedia, multiple media. Therefore, we decide all these things, and these things answer the question of how to teach. Apart from that, we also plan the minor details. For example, while explaining content, a particular concept, what should be the examples that I use, how to simplify the content so that learners can understand it. In other words, how to make explanations and the teaching in general effective. And after that, we also design assessment, that how am I going to know whether teaching has been effective, whether learners have indeed learned. And after assessment, we can determine whether the instructional objectives, which is the starting point of an instructional design, whether these objectives have been fulfilled, whether learners are in a position to demonstrate what we wanted them to demonstrate following teaching. If we want them to list certain things, whether they are able to do that. If we want them to explain certain things, whether they can do that. This is how an instructional designing is developed, instructional designing is carried out. This is in very briefly about what an instructional design is. We can say that an instructional designing is definitely carried out for an learning, for facilitating learning. Why do teachers engage in the process of development of an instructional designing? So that they can teach better. Why do we teach? So that our learners can learn. Therefore, the aim of instructional designing is to facilitate learning. There is no doubt about it. Nevertheless, the focus remains on instructions, that is teaching. How do we teach better? What to teach, why to teach, how to teach, when to teach what, how the content has to be sequenced, all these things we determine in order to make the instructions effective, so that a teacher can teach better. This is the reason why instructional designing is carried out. Coming to the question of instructional objectives, as I have said that we begin with instructional objectives, and this answers the question of why are we teaching. It could be a particular concept, an idea, a process. Why are we teaching this? What would be the benefits for our learners after we have taught this idea or concept? This has to be stated very clearly in the form of instructional objectives. Until and unless we take this step and do it quite well, which is articulating instructional objectives, the rest of the instructional designing process would flounder. We begin with why question. Why am I teaching this? And this would in turn answer questions like what is to be taught, how it is to be taught, whether teaching has been effective, and of course in between there is also the question of when to teach what. In order to ensure the success of an instructional design, we need to be careful about the very first step, which is articulating instructional objectives. From the objectives, we can draw out the inputs that are to be delivered. So this first question about what should be the instructional objectives would logically lead to the second question. What inputs or content or learning experiences are to be provided? And another advantage of formulating instructional objectives well is that when we come to the stage of assessment, which is the last stage, we know what to assess. Definitely we would assess only the things that have been taught. Assessment is therefore guided by instructional objectives, and assessment tells us in turn whether the instructional objectives have been fulfilled. This is the reason why instructional objectives are so important. It tells us what to teach, when to teach, and how to teach, and it also tells what to assess. And you see that it is a cyclical process. Assessment in turn tells us whether the objectives have been fulfilled. Assessment mechanisms are therefore a part of instructional design, and these mechanisms help us to assess the effectiveness of teaching by reflecting the fulfillment of instructional objectives. Instructions need to be planned. As I have said at the very outset that planned teaching is instruction. How do we plan it? What guides the planning? Since teaching is carried out for facilitating learning, therefore learner has to be at the center of all instructional processes. Instructions are therefore planned in view of learners' needs. What are their learning needs? And we also keep in mind, after having decided that, well, my learners need to learn, say, why it rains more at some places like Cherrapunji and why it rains less at Rajasthan. They need to learn how to calculate simple interest, compound interest. They need to learn how to communicate in writing. for a particular language. So having determined the learning needs, my next task is to focus on the factors that will facilitate learning. And in order to facilitate learning, what should I do? What steps should a teacher take so that learning can be facilitated? For this, a teacher needs to understand the factors that facilitate learning. The benefit of carrying out instructional designing is that it helps us to plan teaching in a systematic way in view of the goals. This in turn has an advantage that teaching as well as learning remain on track and remain focused activities. What are the factors that facilitate learning? After having decided what learners should learn, we need to determine the factors that will help them to learn. We can begin with when we start teaching in a class, whether it is a face-to-face class or it is an online class. The first thing that we try to do is to draw learners' attention. It is not only while teaching, even during a television program or a film or an audio program. Those who are delivering the content fail to draw the learners or the audience's attention at the very beginning. There are chances that people would lose interest, learners would lose interest. If it is a television program which we have developed in order to teach, if it is an audio program developed with the objective of teaching, until and unless we can hook the audience right at the beginning, they would use their remote and shift away to some other channel. Similarly, in a classroom, when we are teaching, we need to arouse learners' interest. We need to make them interested in learning. And we know very well that without interest, people don't learn. We only learn things in which we are interested. And drawing attention is essential for creating interest. How do we draw learners' attention? We can draw their attention maybe by asking a question. Learners would realize that, well, I don't know the answer to this question. Or maybe I know the answer, but there is more that would add to my knowledge. Sometimes the teacher may narrate a story or an anecdote, or maybe she would begin with a case and try to draw learners' attention towards the topic. The next big challenge is, after having drawn learners' attention, the next big challenge is to sustain their interest. That is because even during while watching a television program, until and unless the audience interest is sustained, they would start watching something else. Therefore, we need to teach in such a way that we draw learners' attention and we also sustain their interest. Making them interested at the beginning is just not enough. How can we do that? We can pose questions so that learners remain attentive. We can ask, if it is an interactive system, we can ask learners to participate in the ongoing teaching learning process. That would also help to sustain their interest. Or we could change the stimuli. For example, if a teacher is delivering a lecture, she could modulate her voice, she could bring in some visuals, she could play a video, a short video, or maybe a video clip in between. That would help to sustain learners' interest. And then we need to select pedagogic tools that help us to explain concepts. For example, visuals, graphics could be used. We use examples, we use metaphors. This is how we try to present the content in a way that facilitates learning. And then we also need to plan the steps for assessing learning? Should I include a quiz? Should I include a set of questions? Should I include an assignment? And after carrying out these activities, the learners should also get feedback. The feedback will help them to know whether or not they have learned or how they can strengthen their understanding. The teacher would also know, she would be in a position to determine the gaps in learning and how it can be bridged, and learners would also understand that what remains to be learned. Now coming to some examples for designing instructions. See, apart from instructional designing, there is also a concept of learning design which is developed maybe for a topic like development of a blueprint for an achievement test. But unlike an instructional design, the learning design would include activities so that learning is facilitated. And unlike in an instructional designing, while creating a learning design, learning is planned. Nevertheless, coming back to the topic of instructional design, we usually begin with a need survey. Need survey is carried out for determining the target groups. For example, secondary level teachers. What is their need? And how did I come to know that the target group comprises secondary level teachers? By asking myself the question that who is the target audience? What is the profile of my learners? This is important. Until and unless I know who my learners are, I would not be able to develop the content that suits their requirement. Next, after having determined who my target audience is, I should determine their learning needs. Well, they are secondary level teachers. If I am designing an in-service program, I would have to ask myself, what are their learning needs? What do they need to learn? They are already teaching in schools. I have to determine their learning needs. And then what is their demographic profile? Are these teachers conversant in English or Hindi or in regional language? So language is one aspect, and since they are secondary level teachers, I would come to know that they have academic qualification of at least graduation, and I would pitch my program, the content, the difficulty level, the complexity level of my program accordingly. There could be other target groups as well. Maybe some of them have not even completed their schooling. In that case, the level of the program will have to be pitched accordingly. Therefore, it is important to know the demographic profile. Apart from that, there are other questions as well. For example, I need to develop an online program. I wish to develop an online program. In that case, I should ascertain my target groups, access to the program, access to internet, access to broadband, so that they can access the program that I deliver. After carrying out the need survey and determining learning needs, who my learners are, their demographic profile, the next step is to articulate the objectives, because now I know who my learners are, what their learning needs are, and I am now in a position to articulate the objectives, and this will in turn help me to determine what would be covered in the unit that I develop or in the class that I take. And this will also help me to articulate what is expected from learners. Learners would also know that, well, after this class or after reading this unit, I should be in a position to carry out what has been articulated as an objective. This would naturally keep both teaching and learning focused and prepare the learner for the challenges ahead and the standards to be attained. It also helps the teacher to maintain the standards, to maintain quality of instructions, because whatever is the objective, the content should be in sync with the objective. The content, there should not be any mismatch between what I aim for and what I provide to my learners. And this helps to attain predetermined standards. Learners can also carry out assessment after they have learned, maybe from a printed self-learning material, a unit of a printed self-learning material, or after watching a video. If there are objectives at the beginning, the learners would be in a position to carry out self-evaluation vis-a-vis these objectives. They can also prepare for the assessment keeping in view the objectives. Objectives therefore help learners, and as I have said, objectives help teachers in deciding what to teach and how to assess, what to assess. Objectives also help administrators, managers, that is because objectives bring in accountability. Whether teachers have designed instructions effectively, whether they have delivered the content effectively, these things come to the fore once we have clear instructional objectives. And sometimes resources, additional resources are also required. For example, if a teacher has to deliver an online lecture, she would need certain technological resources, some support. This would help the managers to decide in advance the kind of technology in which they need to invest. Therefore, formulating objectives helps the learners, the teachers, educational administrators, and other stakeholders as well. But since it is instructional designing, objectives help the teachers most. The objectives actually translate into educational intentions and help in providing suitable educational experiences through selection and organization of appropriate instructional inputs. All these activities become focused activities. And the teacher is also in a position to decide the most appropriate medium or media for imparting instructions. I'll cite an example here. For example, she intends to demonstrate a process. She would naturally opt for videos, the video medium. But if she has only to teach pronunciation, she might select audio medium. We see that objectives help us in deciding even the medium or the media we need for delivering instruction, and we are in a position to develop appropriate instructional strategy in terms of media, techniques, the activities that we would include while teaching, the content load. If the target group includes children of the primary section, how much content load should be included? Or if it is a certificate level program, how much content load should be included? On the other hand, if I intend to teach a concept to postgraduate level students, what should be the content load? The assessment plans, and we can also assess the learning outcomes. And this will in turn reflect the efficiency of instructional inputs and the instructional process. If the assessment results are not satisfactory, we can alter these aspects of the instructional design. And after the assessment is over, we can carry out program evaluation and revision on the basis of instructional objectives. If the instructional objectives have not been met during program evaluation, we would be in a position to make alterations in the inputs and the processes. Apart from that, objectives also help us to sequence the content, and this is an essential part of instructional designing. We can carry out content analysis. For example, I want to teach my learners how to develop a blueprint for an achievement test. I would tell them about the concept of a blueprint first. After that, what is the need for a blueprint, and then what are the steps my learners should take in order to come out with a blueprint. The content selected then has to be organized. Organization of the content also depends on what to teach first and how to end the lesson and what should be there in between. This requires that the content is sequenced. Therefore, organization of the content and sequencing the content are closely related activities. Once we have decided, for example, I would teach the concept first, the need for a blueprint later, and then after that the steps for making a blueprint. So this helps me to sequence the content and to organize the content as per the sequence. But the question is, how do we sequence the content? Sequencing actually means placing the content in a certain order, which should be logical, and deciding what should be taught first, what to teach after that, and finally how to end. The ordering is planned in view of what could be learnt first. We teach something first if learning that thing is possible at the beginning. And we need to plan it so that subsequent learning becomes easy. Therefore, actually the sequencing is visualized at the stage of setting instructional objectives. And our objectives could be, learners would be able to explain the concept of a blueprint. The next objective could be, learners would be able to describe the benefits of a blueprint. And the third objective could be, learners would be in a position to develop a blueprint. If this is the sequence of the objectives, I shall not have any problem while sequencing and organizing the content, because I know what to teach first. The first objective would guide the sequence of the objectives would guide the process of sequencing. And I also need to know that simple things need to be taught first. Complexity enhances when we add details to simple things that we have taught at the beginning. For example, when we teach about plants, we teach first about the plant in general, and then we come to its parts, and then the structure and function of the parts, and after that we teach these at the cellular level, and then we go deep into the cell. But this is done only at an advanced level course. Therefore, simpler tasks, for example, writing alphabets, this is taught first. Children first learn how to write alphabets, then they form words and then sentences. Details are added, complexity is enhanced, but only at subsequent level. Content analysis is one way of sequencing the content. Task analysis is also another way of sequencing the content. Task analysis, when we organize the content, we sequence it as per the difficulty level of tasks. Simple tasks are taught first, and then complex tasks are taught. We also carry out evaluation while designing instruction. Formative, while teaching we assess by interacting with our learners in order to determine what they have learned and what they haven't. This gives us an idea of gaps in learning, and this is called continuous assessment or formative assessment. After teaching, we may take a test, and this is known as summative assessment. This is about the evaluation which comes to an end, and the results of evaluation would help us to alter or retain the inputs and processes. This is how the steps of instructional designing are carried out. Thank you.